I felt something quite important shift inside me on Saturday as I attended the so-called People's Vote March, and indeed as I had the enormous privilege and slightly daunting pleasure of being the first speaker on the platform in Parliament Square. But I said something that I shared with you last week when I was trying to work out what I was going to say, and the little phrase we came up with was contempt for the con men, compassion for the conned. Very, very quickly, if I was one of the con men, I'd be trying to cast that as being patronising or casting it as being condescending or sneering. It's none of those things. It's a simple statement of my feelings. It was rather gratifying to see it on a few placards that were knocking about the place on Saturday. T-shirts are to follow, actually, with donations to a charity yet to be decided. But contempt for the con men, compassion for the conned, pithy slogan. But we know where pithy slogans have got us, so then you dig deeper into what it means. And what it actually means is more of an intellectual compassion than an emotional compassion. And an intellectual compassion involves empathy. And empathy involves imagining the circumstances in which you would have voted to leave the European Union, and I found it surprisingly easy. There is something almost irresistible about the logic in the absence of other information and other factors, the idea that BMW or Mercedes-Benz or Audi would in no way allow anything to make it harder for them to sell or indeed manufacture cars in this country. It's quite a logical thing, that. Maybe we even should give Digby Pudding Jones a break when he said, "I know I'm right," even though he was wrong. I think the fact that he said, "I know I'm right," is what sadly excludes him from any form of kind of forgiveness. I know I'm right. You can't know you're right. And you were wrong. You're pudding. So people who insisted they were right accepted. Everyone who just thought it made sense and seemed plausible, fair play to you. Turns out it was wrong. Turns out it's a massively more complicated issue than we realised. And the German automotive industry, let alone the German government, sees a lot more value in retaining the single market than it does in allowing a departing member to rewrite the rules. Put it like that, it's not even that hard to swallow, is it? Of course you're going to retain that. It's the single market that lets you do just-in-time delivery, that lets you do this, that lets you do that. And what sustains it and keeps it afloat is the cooperation and the investment from the member states. So if you're not going to cooperate and invest anymore, you don't get to benefit from the things that cooperation and investment has created. Simples. I never heard it explained like that in the run-up, so I could easily have voted the other way. Of course, if you did vote the other way, and now you've seen that that particular part of the platform was wrong, bogus, false, mistaken, you more than anyone deserve another crack of the whip. And if you no longer care about the fact that the German car industry isn't going to come to our rescue, you can still vote to leave for whatever reasons you now have. But the ones you had then, they were wrong. 12:07. Philip is in Hatfield. Philip, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Yes, thanks for letting me join in.
You're very welcome.
I really need your help. I voted to leave. The reason I voted to leave mainly was bureaucracy. You know, I'm paying money to my parish council for stuff and
Yes.
county council, and the rest goes to the government. Now I'm paying somebody else for stuff. But in the last 6 months or so, I've really sort of come round to, you know, big mistakes. You know, the way this has been badly negotiated, we're going to get a poor deal. We might just as well remain in. But what has really confused me, James, this is where I need your help. I have a good friend who's got a son who's quite a senior academic in Cambridge.
Right.
And I was with them at the weekend. And they were stating that we would lose things like our abstention veto in 2020. And that's contained in the Lisbon Treaty. Would you know that's true?
Well, I mean, I haven't got everything in front of me. It contains an echo of something that's been doing the rounds on social media and has been shown to be complete hokum. But that's why I find it odd to imagine that a Cambridge academic would be inflating it in company.
Well, I mean, he's a classical academic. He's hardly political or anything like that. But
why mention it then? Sorry.
Well, it's going around Cambridge. That apparently a lot of people feel the same way.
It's going around Facebook. I've seen it on Facebook, this notion that we would... There will be some areas where I think that the veto might lose. There might be some areas, as there are already, where the veto would not be as simple to apply. But if we were in the European Union, we'd be able to resist any changes to the current state of affairs, wouldn't we?
But not if we lose our veto in 2020.
No. But they couldn't remove the veto without it being democratically endorsed by members.
Well, what they say, I think, is they say that if the majority decide.
Right, and this is just your mate at Cambridge again, is it? It was quite an interesting conversation you had at the weekend, Philip.
It's obviously something doing the rounds, James.
Well, of course it's doing the rounds, in the same way that Turkey did the rounds before the European Union referendum. Everyone was told that Turkey was imminently joining. Everybody was told that the German car industry wouldn't countenance any changes to our trading arrangements. Everyone was told that we couldn't control our borders. Everyone was told that we had millions of laws foisted upon us, and then they couldn't tell me what those laws were. So I don't have in front of me everything you need to answer the questions that you're asking, but can I give you some advice in one simple word?
Of course you can.
Google.
Well, I have done, and that's
good. Well, go to a decent fact check site, and you'll be able to find everything that you need to find. Philip. Jack's in Tooting. Jack, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah?
No. Who said that?
Jack from Tooting.
Is that Jack from Tooting?
It is, yeah.
What would you like to say, Jack?
Right. Thank you for taking my call, James. Could you just please give me 30 to 40 seconds just to make some points which I don't believe have been made yet? You know, we've got an ageing population, obviously, so we're always going to need immigration, whether it be from the EU, Africa, China, or India. And the government has not been honest with the public about this. We should thank the immigrants for coming here. Since the Second World War, we've welcomed and needed immigration, and they've helped to make this country the fifth or sixth richest country in the world, which is slowly fading away now. So this government and previous governments have failed to build enough infrastructure for the increased immigration which has come here. They failed to build enough houses, enough hospitals, enough schools, etc., etc. That's why we felt overburdened with the amount of people that have come here. But if you invite people to come to your place, then obviously you need to build more infrastructure. We've taken the money. We've taken the money that these people have bring to this country, but we've not reinvested it. This government and previous governments should apologise to the public and should thank the immigrants for all what they have done.
I think an awful lot of people who voted Leave would agree with you. And I think part of the problem that we've all been complicit in is creating this idea that everyone who voted to Leave would somehow disagree with what you've said. Everyone I know who voted to Leave, Jack, is supremely comfortable, not just comfortable, but appreciative of what you've described, the simple facts of immigration, particularly European Union immigration being a net benefit to our economy. And of course, then you look at the NHS and other public services, and many people would argue they would struggle to survive without the EU workforce that are currently on the books.
But yet many people voted to leave because they felt there were too many immigrants here already.
I know that, and you know that. And they know that, and when you ask them where these immigrants are, they say, not the ones I actually know, not the ones I work with, not the ones that my children go to school with. It's the ones that I read about in The Sun. It's the mythical ones that I read about in the comments section of the Mail Online. And here's the challenge, Jack, because even by the time of the 2015 general election, even the Labour Party was sticking slogans on mugs that appeared to play to the myth that you've described. As a politician, how do you sell the upticks, the positives, the benefits of immigration? How do you sell them when the bloke on the other side is whispering in the ear, they're trying to steal your jobs, they're trying to steal your women, they're trying to steal your money, they're trying to steal your biscuits? All you've got in his other ear is, well, they haven't. And the other bloke just says, yeah, not yet, but they want to. That's the challenge, Jack. That's the challenge throughout humanity, isn't it? Between the person whispering false poison into one ear and the person whispering dull truths into the other.
You can see it on a daily basis.
You surely can.
As you get older, you need hospitals more. So, I mean, I've been in hospital a number of times. Most of the nurses there are not British.
I know.
They're from the EU, and they are diligent. They're conscientious. They're conscientious.
And so are the ones that aren't. And in fact, you've reminded me, Jack, of something I intended to do on the programme this morning. I've already done it on Twitter. I'd like to thank Dr. William Toohey and all the staff on the Starlight ward at the West Middlesex Hospital in West London. They have earned the undying, the eternal gratitude of my family for events of the last week or so. But that's just a simple fact that you describe. The workforce, the staff, are as multicoloured and as multicultural and as diverse and as different as the rest of the country, the rest of society. But I still don't know how do you make that point? Because you tell me about the nurses, Jack, and if I was someone, taking the knee to that despicable breaking point poster, I'd just say something like, all right, well, the nurses can stay, but we've got to get rid of the rest of them. Do you see what I mean?
What about construction then? What about construction?
Well, I could stick my head out the window now and find someone in the construction industry who claims that the reason why he hasn't had a pay rise or he can't find work has nothing to do with the fact that he's lazy or not prepared to move, and it's everything to do with the fact that people who are prepared to cross continents in search of work have somehow undercut him.
Just what about healthcare? What about healthcare? How soon is it you're going to need a carer?
Yeah, they can stay. I don't mean them. They can stay. It's the others I need to get rid of. That's how it works, Jack. Between us, you and me might be able to come up with an answer, but it'll be hard. Something that's not hard is dealing with Philip in Hatfield, who was on a moment ago asking about something that someone in Cambridge had asked him and told him about, and I suggested Google. So I thought I'll do Google. It's a bit patronising just to say Google. I Googled lose our veto in 2020. First thing that comes up from Full Fact, an independent charity that checks stuff, is there's a lot wrong with this viral list about the Lisbon Treaty, and then it goes through in detail about everything that's wrong with it. So Philip, mate, pain me though it does to have one fly in the ointment of this incredibly harmonious and friendly programme, you, pal, were not a good faith actor. Because if you can't Google it, but you can ring a national radio station to ask about it, I'd suggest that you might need to give your head a wobble. So here's the thing, where does it begin? It's GATT 24 is the most. Article 24 of GATT will allow us to do whatever we want for 10 years and get unicorns by tea time. And then you hear it, particularly on phone-in radio programmes, you hear people ring in and say it, and sometimes the presenter doesn't know whether it's true or not, so it gets out there. Then you see it on Facebook. So I'm very keen to triple check what Philip in Hatfield suggested or asked us to look into for him, possibly in good faith. Maybe I'm doing him a disservice when I say you should Google this stuff before you ring me. But if you simply Google, do we lose our veto in 2020, this comes up about claims regarding the Lisbon Treaty that are doing the rounds on social media or, if you prefer, doing the rounds in Cambridge. And it appears under the headline, which is the first thing on your search terms. There's a lot wrong with this viral list about the Lisbon Treaty. And the very first thing in the list of things that's wrong addresses directly the claim Philip made about losing our veto. It's quite incredible. I mean, genuinely incredible in many ways. So here you go. The UK, all along, with all existing members of the EU, lose their abstention veto in 2020 as laid down in the Lisbon Treaty when the system changes to that of majority acceptance with no abstentions or vetoes being allowed. That's the claim. This is wrong. The Lisbon Treaty did make changes to how EU law gets passed, which reduced the scope of states' veto ability, but it did not abolish veto powers. And these changes are already in effect, rather than coming into force in 2020. The term abstention veto is not even a part of European Union law, as you can see by the fact that most Google results for the term are references to this thing that's gone viral in the first place. EU legislation has to be approved by the Council of the European Union, which is made up of ministerial representatives of the governments of all EU member states. So maybe we should give Philip a break. Maybe he was being genuine. And because this person that said it to him is at Cambridge University, albeit doing classics, he thought there must be something in it. But check. Just check. It's simply not true. This is, in case it's appeared in your inbox, this is what appears at the top of the bogus claims. Why is nobody talking about the Lisbon Treaty, the treaty that comes into force 2020? It's worse than the so-called deal. If 99% of the British think the deal is bad, just look at the Lisbon Treaty. People need to know leavers and remainers. What will actually happen if we stay in the EU is a question no Remainer will ever answer, but here it is, warts and all. And it's all wrong. It is wrong to say that the Lisbon Treaty comes into force in 2020. Do you know why it's wrong to say that the Lisbon Treaty comes into force in 2020? Shall I tell you why it's wrong to say that the Lisbon Treaty comes into force in 2020? Because it came into force in 2009. 10 years ago. As was agreed by EU member countries, every single one of them, including us, in 2007. It has been in place since 2009. If the UK were to remain in the European Union beyond March of 2019 for any reason, then the Lisbon Treaty wouldn't suddenly change anything. But it's still out there. Even Cambridge academicals are falling for it. That's how it works. So you, and I'm not going to single anyone else out for particular criticism, but you will be listening to LBC at some point in the next 48 hours, and a caller will come on, and a caller will claim that this absolute hogwash that has been disseminated and amplified on Facebook is true, just as I've heard callers on other programmes talking about Article 24 of GATT. And this is not a normal way to earn a living. Most people don't spend their days with the noses in the treaties. Most people doing what I do for a living haven't read the Good Friday Agreement. Why would you? Answer, because we owe it to our callers. But you will hear a caller on this radio station making reference to this stuff, and a presenter may not know that it's not true, which is how it happens. That's why they do it. That's why they promote it. It's why they tweet it. It's why they post it. Because you just get it out there. And you know what they say about a lie? It's halfway around the world before the truth has got its trousers on. Well, today, thank you, Philip, because it's because of you that I remembered to put my trousers on this morning. 23 minutes after 12 is the time. 2 phone lines free if you want to grab one and just talk to me about the easy reasons for voting leave, the stuff that was all too easy to believe would be true, not the scary stuff. We've focused almost exclusively on the lies about Turkey, the lies about immigration, the disgusting, manipulative nature of that despicable Breaking Point poster. What about all the perfectly good reasons, which were considered by perfectly good people as reasons to vote to leave? Now they've turned out not to be true. When the facts change, sir, I change my mind. What do you do? Andy's in Stamford. Andy, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello,
Thank you for having me on.
You're
today.
very welcome. I'm surprised you're still awake, mate, after that little diatribe, quite frankly. But we
fine.
Carry on.
It's absolutely fine. It's interesting you're saying about unicorns and fact checking, because I'm guilty of buying a unicorn and not checking.
You're not, mate. Forgive me for splitting hairs. I'm doing a quick fact check already. You're not guilty of buying a unicorn. You might have bought a promise of a unicorn, but you certainly didn't buy a unicorn.
I'm certainly hoping that we get the chance to do something about this.
Really?
I like a lot of people. I cast my vote in 2016. I was an ardent Brexiteer, and I cast it in good faith that bringing what I believe to be the chance to make our own laws back in this country again, and I believe we'd be able to form our own trade deals, and it would somehow make our country better. And I believed the politicians, and I used to watch a lot of debates with late night debates with Giselle Stewart, Andrea Leadsom on the Leave campaign. It really spoke to me, and I thought, wow, we could actually prosper should we leave the European Union and set our own path. But it's took me, 2.5 years since the vote, but it's took me a long time to realise that I bought a dud. I want my money back, James.
When did the needle start to move? Can you remember, or has it just been incremental? I'm one of these people. I go on social media. I follow Remainers and Leavers, and I sort of tried to argue the Brexit case, and people will be saying their side of the story, and I'll be saying my side. And it got to the point where I was reading these conversations I was having with other people, and I'm agreeing with everything they're saying, and looking at what I've written and thinking, I don't back that anymore. It's rubbish. What I was writing was just. And they are queuing up to tell you that you did vote for what's happening now, and that anyone like me who suggests that you didn't is patronising you, condescending to you, and misrepresenting you.
Well, what I've also had, I've had several people actually turn around to me and said to me, "I bet you didn't vote Leave in the first place. You're just saying you voted Leave."
Well, that's why we've done the whole 3 hours on it today, because even if we had everyone at RADA currently pretending to be what you are, clearly telling the truth we wouldn't be able to fill 3 hours.
I simply said to these people, just literally just go back through my timeline, read my tweets.
Yeah,
that's all you have to do is just go back, read my tweets, and you'll see what side of the argument I was on. But,
you mentioned Andrea Leadsom playing a role in your, and now of course Andrea Leadsom is one of the leading exponents of the idea that you shouldn't be allowed to change your mind.
Yes,
do you mean
that's right, yeah.
Do you mean this, Andrea Leadsom?
I'm going to nail my colours to the mast here. I don't think the UK should leave the EU. I think it would be a disaster for our economy, and it would lead to a decade of economic and political uncertainty at a time when the tectonic plates of global success are moving.
Do you mean that, Andrea Leadsom?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, well, turns out she's allowed to change her mind, Andy. I don't know what it is for the likes of you that somehow renders you not allowed to exercise that sort of privilege. Especially when it's her job to understand this stuff. I don't know what you do for a living, but I doubt it's your job to understand this stuff and explain it to the public.
Well, I mean, I work in the steel industry.
Oh.
So obviously, it's an industry I wanted to thrive, and I've worked in manufacturing for years, and I sort of believed that a future outside the EU would help that. And I look at what are the facts, not the lies that were peddled.
Or even the theories that are unprovable, because you can take them as relief to each other. So you can say, here's one theory and here's the other. And that's where you would be with the German car industry, for example. But they're not theories anymore. We know what the German car industry is or is not going to do with regard to our intent to leave the European Union. So that is now a fact. That has changed. What was a theory with a contradictory theory has become a fact that brooks no contradiction, but somehow they claim that you knew what you were voting for. That's what I think I'm getting most frustrated by at the moment, is this ludicrous claim that you voted for the polar opposite of what you were told would happen.
I mean, they say leavers know what they voted for, but they don't. Parliament's proof of that. Parliament is absolute. Every Brexiteer in Parliament, if leavers knew what they were voting for, they'd all be behind the same thing. They'd all say, we want this, but they don't. You've got some that want the WTO exit. You've got some that want,
You've got Gove and Johnson, the two flipping leaders, the two leaders of the whole shebang, going through different lobbies on the only vote that they should have been able to have on the question of the withdrawal agreement. That's the only one that we're able to negotiate.
Exactly.
Andy,
exactly.
Mate.
And I just want to say to you and every other person in this country that's listening who voted to remain in the European Union, that I am so sorry. I went the wrong way on this. I can see.
Well, I want to say to you,
any project fear or anything. Project fear is project fact. I haven't been swayed on anything. But the information is out there, and people should make the effort. They should read it. I didn't when I should have done.
Well, nor did I. And that's why today's show is today's show, because all of these plausible, utterly nothing to do with racism or bigotry or immigration, millions of people with millions of reasons for doing something that, for the record, Andy, you have absolutely no need to apologise for. The people who persuaded you to go down that path, perhaps, have something to apologise for, but I'm so full of the joys of spring today that even they perhaps deserve a break. Maybe they were just wrong rather than actually being deliberately deceptive. Except Boris Johnson. Back to this simple question of what's left now. You look at all the things that we were told in the run-up to that referendum, and oddly, when you look at the list of the people at Chequers this weekend, they're the ones whose pledges and promises and claims to understand have turned out to be false, wrong, mistaken. And yet still they're there, insisting that they get a go on the steering wheel. For the rest of us, if you believed that the German car industry would do this, or if you believed that unless we left we couldn't do that, or if you believed that we were somehow victim to this, and now you know we weren't, I think you've been horribly abandoned, actually, by both the public discourse and the political reality. And we are making amends in our own small way. Jeffrey's in Gravesend. Jeffrey, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. Good afternoon, James. Pardon me. Just a couple of observations, really, if I may. Firstly, you've no doubt seen Boris Johnson's Moses-like plea to let my people go.
Yeah.
I think it was more apt than he intended, in that the Israelites were then led into 40 years of in the wilderness, weren't they?
With a few other pretty grim experiences as well.
Well, this is the point. Yeah, apart from beyond that, I was actually with you, along with many other people on Saturday. Families, pensioners, lots of kids, students. But you see people with their dogs and everything. There was nothing remotely menacing about any of this. We were just, good-natured people, enthusiastic, concerned about our country, but no threat to anyone whatsoever. And for that. Lady Sarah Vine's comment is just ludicrous. I don't. You'd have, if you want to feel hostility, go into a pub and actually defend. You try and defend your position against a posse of rabid Brexiters.
Well, I'm not devoid of experience. I may not have done it in a pub exactly, Jeffrey, but I'm not exactly devoid of running the gauntlet of rabid Brexiters. Of course, it's not a question of defending necessarily that is key. It's a question of asking the right questions, and when you do, it almost always falls apart. But of course, with the exception of the rabid constituency, when it does fall apart, I think perhaps a mistake we've made is scoffing and gloating and laughing and pointing, whereas we should have just gone, could have easily happened to me, mate. There, but for the grace of God. And that's what today's show has been so interesting for.
I'll take that point, because it's kind of my first point clumsily dovetails in with a second, really. That,
Go on.
It was quite poignant. You seemed a little embarrassed about it, but our kin, our people,
our cousins and our kin. Yeah, I was a bit embarrassed because no one talks like that, Jeff.
But it doesn't matter. It summed up. To me, it summed up something very personal to me, really. Because I've had to avoid my sister and my niece since Saturday, because I know I'll immediately I will sense this hostility, the aggression from them, this seething rage that I dared, challenge the doctrine.
Really, there's still kind of, yeah.
All I get for them really is you were trying to have a discussion, just a calm, rational discussion, and it just.
So what would their key? Because this is a sad picture that you paint. If you were able to reach a point where they calmly explained what they voted for in 2016, what would they say, do you think?
It just comes. It's more of a feeling than anything else.
That's where it becomes impossible to debate.
We all know that the referendum was not an informed decision. It was an uninformed choice. It wasn't. You can't. It's a foolish democracy to have people make a choice on something they don't understand. As for my family, sadly, I've got to confess that many of them, immigration was the primary issue. Everything else about. I mean, who on earth that knew understood a thing about WTO?
Well, they now claim they all do, of course, and I don't want to sound dismissive,
this is the
but
problem.
They probably don't.
But thank you for the comment anyway, James.
I'm glad you liked it. The crowd seemed to like it. It's just me that felt like a Herbert, Jeffrey. And if you don't know what Jeffrey and I are referring to, I gave a very brief speech on Saturday in Parliament Square, and I got a bit carried away with the moment. It was all so emotional and powerful, and I don't think I've ever been in front of a crowd like that before. So as I started saying stuff I've said to you a million times, these people, everyone we've spoken to today, our friends, our family, our Leave voters who were not rabid or racist or stupid or bigoted or blinded by propaganda surrounding immigration, the rest of them are our friends, our families, our colleagues. And from somewhere came the phrase, and bearing in mind this was on quite a big stage, from somewhere came the phrase, our cousins and our kin, which I'm very relieved to learn that Jeffrey found quite resonant, because it's quite a large part of me at the time as those words came out of my mouth that wondered where the heck they'd come from. Nigel is in Worcester. Nigel, what would you like to say?
Just really wanted to apologise, really.
Don't have anything to... Well, actually, I don't know what you're apologising for yet, but if it's for voting to leave, Nigel, you've got nothing to apologise for, mate. Not to me and not to anyone.
Yeah, I voted leave, and then I went on a bit of a journey, and now I'm very much in the Remainer camp and signing petitions and persuading anybody
nudged it? What changed? What made your needle move? That's becoming my new catchphrase, isn't it?
Well, I'd got a bit. I'd gone a bit Pete Gammon. I'd gone.
So we don't use that word anymore on the programme because I got a talking to from someone who I care about who felt I was talking about him. So after it appeared on adverts for my book, I stopped using the word gammon. But I'm going to let you bring it back on this one occasion. No, I get it. I know what it means.
Yeah, I'd got very wound up. I was very patriotic.
Yes.
And, I thought it was the right thing to do for the country. I'd listened to Emmanuel Macron on Mar in the springtime, and he'd come across as very aggressive against our decision to leave.
Yes.
And I don't like the thought of being bullied. And
No.
And it felt like that. But you asked me when I thought I'd started to change my mind, and it was pretty early on because it's when the Gibraltar vote came in. I thought, oh my God, Gibraltar voted to remain. As I say, I thought
it's about 98% or something absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought I was
wasn't it?
being all patriotic.
Yes.
And then the two main culprits rocked up on TV the following day with no plan, looking like naughty schoolboys. I thought I've made one hell of a mistake, but although I thought I'd made a mistake, I was still very much in the Leave camp. I found it very hard to listen to any Remainers on social media or on the radio. It was really quite a nasty period, really. But
it was.
By the autumn and the Christmas time, I'd been listening to you and the experts that you'd held on the program, just dismissing myth after myth.
And that's it. I mean, it's almost quite liberating just to go, oh yeah, all right, my bad. And what we've done is create this atmosphere where you found it so hard to move. And I've got a horrible feeling that some of us, possibly even I, might have been played by the other side by helping to create the environment in which we all felt entrenched and you felt you couldn't move.
No, I don't think you did. I think you've done more than probably anybody else to.
I hope so.
I mean, this programme is...
Could always have done more, Nigel. That's how it works.
Okay, all right. Well, as I say, I just wanted to...
Oh, you're a star, mate.
Apologise and...
You're a star.
Say thank you.
Pint Banks is in the grape shot next time I'm in Worcester.
I'll take you up on that.
It's a deal. I don't know if I'm going to have time to squeeze in a Gavin or a Mark or a Naveen or an Imran or a Jeremy or anyone else still waiting to talk. Thank you for being my Operation Brock, though. We've been stacking calls since 10 o'clock this morning in preparation for a no-deal Brexit, and every single one of them, I think bar two, with the brackets around old Philip in Hatfield, because we don't know whether he was acting in good faith or not. But it was actually a helpful opportunity to drive a coach and horses through all that hogwash about the Lisbon Treaty that might well be popping up in your Facebook feed without you knowing that it's been put there by bad actors, by liars, by propagandists. But other than that, every single one, essentially, and I hope you don't mind me using these words, intelligent, non-racist, articulate Leave voters who've changed their minds for the very simple reason that the stuff they thought was true about everything from the German car industry to our ability to make our own laws has turned out not to be true. How on earth can we continue to tell them that when the facts change, they're not allowed to change their mind?